what you're going to get today at this webinar, you're going to learn the differences between what was available before, what's available now, learn what features are available with the new marketing events update, as well as how to go through and set up a marketing event for offline events or for events that are not connected through a third-party application. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to run through a really cool tutorial, in my opinion, for data management, all right? Because the new tool requires an upload for your registrations, attendees, and cancellations. So I'm going to give you a workflow that I created, kind of a custom marketing operations process. So we'll cover that last, along with some questions and answers. So with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in here. I'm Mandy Thompson. I'm one of the co-founders at Digital Reach. We work with HubSpot. We work with digital marketing, basically anything involving interacting with your customers, whether it's your internal technology or technology and messaging that connects with them. I've been doing this for a little bit over a decade and I love it. And when I'm not doing this, I love to travel, snowboard, be in the mountains, essentially be outside as much as I can. So this is my first time meeting you. Nice to meet you. All right. So let's talk about why this is an important update, right? So what I'd love to ask is what types of events you are interested in managing in HubSpot, all right? That's going to help me. So you're going to see another poll pop up here on the right that's going to ask you what type of events. So are you doing conferences and in-person type of events, offline events, right? Are you doing virtual events? Are you doing both? What types of events are you managing in HubSpot? It looks like a number of you are doing both. Some of you doing in-person events only. So this is great because this is for you. So why did this, marketing events object was such a cool thing when it came out a couple years ago, right? Automatically connects to Zoom webinars, Eventbrite, Accel events, a number of other platforms. So we could bring in our registrations, our attendees, and all of that. But what happens when we aren't using a third-party platform? What happens if we want to use HubSpot to manage everything that has to do with our marketing events, right? What happens if we have an offline event, we go to a conference and there's no registration page? What do we do then? So that's exactly what this update does. It allows us to create custom events, customize the properties on events, and it allows us to import and import attendees, registrants, cancellations, so that we aren't dependent on third-party apps. Okay, so that's what this new update does, and that's why it's important. So let's take a look real quick. Let's just do a quick comparison of old to new. Okay, so quick comparison of old to new. So previously, when you made marketing events in HubSpot, you had to, like I mentioned, you had to connect a third-party app, and that was the only way to create an event. So let me go ahead. I'm going to show you 1 second here. I'm going to go ahead and show you what that used to look like. And we're just going to go ahead and share this also. Okay. So let's talk about what this used to look like. So what it used to look like was this, right? You would go in here and the first thing you would be asked to do would be to connect an app. And then you would choose one of these apps. And then when you create events in that app, it would create an event inside of HubSpot, all right? So if you want to opt into this beta, you can go ahead and go to things that are in beta, search for marketing events, and then you'll get a complete description of this beta. And it is a public beta. So all you have to do is click to join the beta, right? So when you click to join the beta, then what's going to happen is when you go over to this screen, we'll refresh. And let's see, it'll take it a minute to fully refresh across the system. We'll go back there in a second. But basically, you'll see a new button that says create a marketing event. Okay. So this is what it used to look like. So let's go ahead and take a look at what it looks like now. But first, we do have one more poll question for you. Okay. So the poll question that we have for you now is, what types of apps have you connected to marketing events so far? If you've connected any at all. Okay. So that is the next poll question. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at, now that we know what was in the old version, let's dig in a little bit more to what is in the new version, okay? So we can create an event from scratch. We can customize event creation forms. We can create custom properties for marketing events. And we can import lists that are one or a combination of registration, cancellation, and attendance data, okay? So now what I want to do is go ahead and walk you through what it looks like to use these new features, okay? So let's start out here. This is what a number of you have probably seen this event page before, but here are some things that are different. Right now, we can go ahead and we can edit these properties on the side. And we have this tab for imports, right? So you could always attach a list to an event. You could always attach a campaign to an event, but now we have these imports that are also attached to the event. So if you take a look here, you can import event contacts by clicking right there, and you'll go to an import screen, okay? The other thing we can do, like I mentioned, is that we can add our own properties. So you can navigate there in two different ways, okay? The first way that you would navigate there is go to Objects and go to Marketing Events. If you do that, you'll get this screen. Or you can go to Properties, and when you go to Properties, you find Marketing Events, and you can get to them that way, okay? So you can go ahead and create properties for marketing events, and you can create groups for marketing event properties, okay? You can also, like I mentioned, you can customize the form that you use when you create an event. So if there is information that you want your team to add when they are making, wrong button there, when they are making a marketing event form, you just go here, and just like you do with any other HubSpot form, you can go ahead and add properties to the form, and you can make them required, right? You could also have conditional logic. It's required that you use it with enumerated properties, but there's conditional logic. So you can do stuff for these forms depending on the type of event that's being set up, right? So if it's a conference, we might not require certain things. Or if it is a, if it is an in-person lecture, there might be specific things that we do. There might be handouts that we need to have created. So whatever you need to know about that event, because remember, with all these properties, we can now report on them as well. We can use them in calculations. So now we also have more data to be able to report on the cost, budget, ROI, et cetera, of our events. You can also have an event owner or organizer so that you know who is responsible for that event, okay? So that's something else that we can do. So now let's go ahead and take a look over here. So you can update the form like we just went over. So now it's very easy to create an event. You click here, and now that form pops up. So you just add the name of your event. We'll just go ahead and do that right now. Test event, test event, test event. And let's say that it starts today and it ends today. And this isn't required, but we'll do that. There we go. Right now we have a test event. Now I can go ahead and click in here. And if I already have a list of registrants, I can either go there to do it, or for your first import, you can go ahead and click right here. Okay. So we can go ahead, import event contacts, and boom. Now we can go ahead and import a spreadsheet. I'll go through how to do that in just a moment. Okay. So if we take a look at this spreadsheet, this is my snowboarding event spreadsheet. So you'll notice something, and this is important to remember. You have to, for your uploads, if you want there to be a registration date, a cancellation date, or an attendance date inside of HubSpot, it has to be on your upload, okay? This is an interesting space where the properties live as they correspond to the specific contact, okay? You can't access the registered information at the event level or at the contact level, which means it either has to come through a third-party app like it used to, or you have to import it. And you need to have a month, date, year, or date, month, year, but it is only a date property, okay? So if you're exporting from another system and you have a timestamp in there, you will have to remove the timestamp. And again, I have a marketing operations workflow I'm going to walk through at the end of this to help with that, okay? But this is what you would do. You take this spreadsheet and let's see, we could go ahead and we will download this as a CSV. And then we're going to go ahead back over here to this event, and we're going to say that we're importing all three types. We're going to choose a file. We're going to grab this. So here's something I want to call out, because this is where, if you're not used to this process, what do you map everything to, right? Because we haven't had this option before. So record ID, right? So for that, you'll notice there's an option for record ID. And then a lot of this stuff is, we've got some issues there. We'll leave those alone for now. So now we're going to go down here and you have the registration date. So we're going to import this as a marketing event activity property. We are going to import this as a contact property. We are going to import it as a marketing event activity property, my apologies, and choose registered at. Okay, so for all of these, you have to choose marketing event activity property, and then you have to go over and choose the canceled registration at, attended at, or registered at. Okay. And then you're going to need to make sure that everything else, just like with any import in HubSpot, is lined up to import. So I'm going to go ahead and not import this. And then right after this, we should have the ability to actually complete the import. Okay, 1 second. One more. Okay, so we need to make sure that everything we're doing is lined up, and I'm just going to not import that column because that's blocking us from having our import. Okay, oops, last one. There we go. So now we go next, and now we're going to see we're able to import this. It's month, day, year as the time format, and there we go. Now, when we go to that event, we have our registered, our canceled, and our attended, okay? So that's how the import process works. So this is the, these are high level. This is what the features are and how in general new marketing events work. Now, we have one more poll question, right? How likely are you to use the new import feature for online, offline events? So I would absolutely love to hear that. So let me know how likely you are to use the import export feature. And it looks like a lot of you are not using marketing events right now. A majority of you are not using it. And so it's good to hear that there's an opportunity for some of you to start using this feature, because I do think that it is a really great one. So now that we've had a look at this, now we're going to go ahead and go over here and we're going to talk about how do you actually go through and set up an event. Now, you could probably guess this based on what I've already shown you, but let's go ahead and take a look anyway. So we're going to run through next how to set up an event, and then we're going to go through the marketing operations workflow. Okay, so let's talk about this high level, what you need to do. So you're going to need to add any necessary custom properties, right? So when we're creating that event form, what all do we want to know about that event? Let's create those custom properties first, okay? So, and I'll go through and do this in just a minute. Then we need to add the custom properties to our event form. Then we create the event. We create a list to associate with the event. We create a campaign to associate with the event. And then we upload our registrants and attendees. And then we can use workflows to drive automation. Now, something that I do want to call out is that in workflows, there are no marketing event workflow types, and we cannot access marketing event data inside of workflows right now, but we can access it inside of lists, right? So we can make a list that says, if somebody has attended, add them to this list. And then we trigger a workflow with the trigger list membership change. They joined that list. Let's put them in the event follow-up nurture, or let's put them in the event follow-up sequence, whatever it is that we need to do, okay? So we can use lists to work around that. And of course, the HubSpot team, as they always are making a lot of improvements to this product very rapidly. So I'm sure we'll see workflow access as well as a number of other things as this product progresses, okay? So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at how you are going to set up an event. So the first thing that we're going to do when we set up an event, like I said, is we're going to make properties, right? So let's say you want to make a new property. So let's look at the ones that come natively. Well, most of them. We added one for cost, right? So we wanted to know the cost of putting on the event. So we created a property for cost so that we could do some calculations. Then you can see there's a lot of other properties that come in here as well. If you want to create other properties, you can. So for example, let's do something like event owner. Then we can go ahead and for event owner, we can choose a HubSpot user. So if we want to have a HubSpot user property for that, we can. And then there are a couple of other properties I recommend that you create. So this is going to go into the marketing operations workflow that we're going to cover next, okay? But here's something else that I recommend you do. Creating a property for recent event registration date and recent event attendance date, okay? I recommend that. And then you also might need properties for your uploads to drive automation, like somebody attended that event, okay? And I'll get to why that's important in just a minute. But for now, we would create these properties, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to add them to the form. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take that event owner property that I created, and I'm going to add that to the form, okay? So we're going to add whatever properties that we want or need to the form. And then once we've done that, now we come over here and just like before, we create that event, right? Except this time, we're going to see that there's an owner to the event, right? And so we'll just call this, let's see, Mandy's hiking event, since we already went snowboarding. So we'll do that. Hopefully some of y'all would come to my event if I actually had a snowboarding event. Maybe this can become a reality. I would like that, certainly. Okay, So now we have this information and we go ahead and now we have another event, right? So that's the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to go ahead and create an event. So now we need to create a list, okay? So a couple things with the list you create for your event. Number one, I recommend, a couple things here. Number one, like I said, within lists, we could access has completed, registered for a marketing event name is equal to Mandy's snowboarding event. So when you go in here, all of the events you created are going to be there as an option. And then one of the filters available under events for contacts is registered for a marketing event. Okay. So we set that filter so that anybody who registers for this event is going to show up on this list. But then the other thing I did, and this is going to go into my marketing operations workflow, if somebody filled out a form that was for the event, we're also going to add them to this list. Or if the property, not this one, this was actually for a different list. So this is just as an example of if you had a property registered for the event, then that's another way we could add people to the list. But anyhow, once you go in here and you add that event, so watch this. Let's say we add, if we take a look at the event I just created right now, so let's take a look at this event. It does not have any lists. If I go in here and I add Mandy's hiking event and I save the changes to this list, and then I go over here and I refresh. Now, and again, it might take a second. There we go. Now we have a list that's associated. Okay. So you want to make a list, and I would recommend making a list for your registrants, your attendees. And then if you're tracking cancellations, make a list for that too. And you would use the same filter parameters, just instead of registered, it would be attended. And there are some other things that you can use, but I recommend using that option and then choosing the specific event. And then we're going to do the same thing over here with campaigns, right? So we can go in, we create a campaign. We can see this campaign here. And when we create a campaign, we can connect the campaign to the assets. So when we connect the campaign to this event, now it's going to show up there, right? So if we go over to, let's go to the event that's actually associated with. If we go over here, now we can see the associated campaign because we added this event as an asset, right? So now we have lists associated, and then we get to the import step, right? So I'm just going to walk through the import step one more time. And all right, so we're going to go ahead and have all three of these, and we're going to choose a file. I'm going to choose the same file. What you're going to notice is, like with all HubSpot imports, right? It's just going to update the existing contacts. No new contacts are getting created because we've already uploaded this list before, but I'll just upload it again. So again, we're going to leave the record ID out here because we had some errors here. And then we're going to go through and let's see. We have our cancel date. We don't have our registration date lined up. So we're going to do this and we're going to choose registration date. And then we're going to go to this one and we're going to not import it just because I am not going to walk through all those things right now because we all know how to line these up with columns. So I'm going to go and get this one set up as don't import. And then we're going to click import one more time. All right. And then we'll do this. Boom. And now you're all ready to run your event, right? You would just take that list and every time it had an update, you would just go into that list and, add people and make sure that they have a registration date, a cancellation date, and an attended date. And that's all you would have to do. So really a lot of opportunities here to make managing offline events a lot easier and to get that data that you want inside a HubSpot, right? Like you want to be able to track the entire customer journey. So with that, we have a handout for you right now. If you take a look at the right, you have the handouts tab. So if you click there, we have a handout, just kind of a high level preview of everything about these new features and why you want to be using them. Okay. And again, the marketing operations flow I'm going to jump into right now. We're going to be sending an email out to you in the next few days that has that guide as well. Okay. So now let's go ahead and talk about this marketing operations flow. Okay. So like I mentioned before, I'm sorry if you can hear my dogs in the background. I'm sure like all of you who have dogs, they're trying to join every meeting whenever they can. Okay. So now that we've talked through all of this, let's talk about this marketing operations flow, because like I mentioned before, right? We cannot access the marketing events data inside of workflows. I cannot go to a contact record in HubSpot and mark them registered. I can't edit any properties that will mark them as registered. The only way right now for someone to be associated with an event and to be marked as registered, attended, or canceled is either for a third-party app to sync that data in or you have to do an upload, right? Which is great. That's easy enough. We format a spreadsheet. I've already shown you how to do that. But what would we do if we were trying to make a really great marketing operations flow and reduce some of the manual work? Because if you're not exporting it from somewhere else, then you're going to have to go through and enter those dates for everybody. And if they're the same for everybody, great, that's easy. But if they're not the same for everybody, that might be a little bit harder, right? Or just take a little bit more manual work. And I love to reduce the need for manual work whenever I can. And so also, if you're exporting from a system, let's say you use a system for events that doesn't connect with HubSpot and you're exporting from that system, what if the date field has a timestamp in it? Then again, you have to go through and clean all of that data up. So I will say this right now, I'm going to go through a workflow that, might not work for everybody here, but I'm going to call out all the caveats and the way that you can adjust my workflow if it does not work for you. Because obviously, right, I mentioned earlier, if you have conferences, let's say you go to conferences, people aren't registering probably. Like maybe you run a campaign and you work on getting, some potential customers who have open deals, or maybe they're currently SQLs and they're going to the conference. Maybe you get them to try to book a meeting with you, right? And so maybe you count that as a registration. But you might not need registrations for your event. So it might just be bringing attendee data in, right? So I'm going to address some different ways to handle this workflow, and then we're going to jump into some Q&A, okay? So first thing we would do is we would make a form. So let's say that this is a perfect world in our in-person event or whatever type of event, we can get people to register on a HubSpot form. Great. So we're going to create a form and we're going to allow people to register for our event on a form, okay? Now, if they register in another way that is offline, then you're still going to need to get people into your spreadsheet, right? But we can do it in another way. For example, let's say that you're at a conference and you're meeting people. You don't have registrants, you only have attendees. And you still want to get them into HubSpot, so we can use HubSpot's power to clean up our data before we export it and import it into the marketing event that we have had, right? So what we could do is when we scan business cards, we could set up a workflow and say, if someone comes in this day from this source, stamp them with a registration date or mark them that they attended that event, right? So we could also use a QR code. If people, come to an event and they scan a QR code, if they visit the page associated with that QR code, we could go ahead and add them with the information that would allow us to mark them as having registered or attended that event, okay? But the first thing we would do in this perfect little world where everybody is going to go to our website to register is that we can go ahead and have a registration form, okay? So first thing we're doing, and what are we doing? Just like I showed you before with my registration list, if somebody has filled out that form, they're going to get added to this list, right? So again, if you don't use a form, we can get people on this list in other ways. You could export from another system. And then, of course, that's the regular import process, right? But there are a number of ways that you can do this. So especially with registrations, right? And so the other thing I wanted to call out is this little property here, which I'm using on my attendee list, right? Which is, let's say we wanted a quick, easy way to manage this process. Then we could also have a specific property that, like I said, if you're scanning a QR code when someone gets to an event, or you are scanning business cards at a conference, you could go ahead and set up a workflow so that you're automatically marking those people with that check mark is yes. And then those people get added to this list. And this is where the fun part happens, right? If we can get everybody on the list, then what I have is I have a workflow, okay? So if somebody has completed the form, we're going to mark them as with the recent event registration date. I'm sure you know where I'm going here, right? Because if we do that, then what I can do is I can go in and I can actually export this list, and I can just use this list for my import, right? And when I go through to export this list, I can also decide, that I only want to have certain properties. So when I'm mapping the upload, it's not, it's not more work than it needs to be. So I would pull that recent event registration date, and, I don't really need any of these other things in this particular export, right? So I can go ahead and get rid of all of these. And then I guess I have to keep the email address. So I might have gone a little too far there, but then we could just keep email on here, and then we can go ahead and import that back over, right? So now I created the export, which I can use for my import. So I just cleaned the data, right? I got everybody into the CRM. I used workflows to go ahead and log that registration date so that I could export that list to import it so that I didn't have to do any manual cleanup. Similarly, let's say we get everybody onto a list of attendees we can do something similar, right? So let's say we can get everybody on our list of attendees. Let's say, either they've been uploaded or the attended Mandy's snowboarding event date is yes. And then we're going to have one more filter, right? And we're going to say, okay, or we're going to say recent, or actually, no, I have some, sorry, go in here. And so we're going to say recent event attendance date. And we're just going to say that it is known for right now. Okay. So now we can save those changes. And now we have people on this list that are coming from a variety of different sources, right? They could be coming from knowing a recent event attendance date. They could be a yes. So that yes would be, again, let's say you scan a QR code or you scan a business card, have a workflow that would automatically mark that as yes. So then what you could do is you have a list of people who said yes to that. And then what do? We just bulk update, right? We bulk update. And then what do we bulk update with? We bulk update with the recent event attendance date. Because now we have that. Now, again, that's assuming there's only one date people could attend. So if you needed people to attend on different days, you could stamp this in a workflow, right? You could say, if you scanned the QR code or if this value is yes, then go ahead and mark that as the day that it actually happened, right? And so, but we could do a bulk update there. So now we can go ahead and again, we can export that list. We can limit the properties. And now we have a way to update. And we can keep doing this over and over and over again so that it reduces the amount of cleanup. And the reason, while you could look at this and say, okay, well, that flow could take a bit of time to set up. And I do agree with that. However, once you have this flow, you duplicate the recipe over and over again, right? You take the same properties that you used for attended Mandy's snowboarding event, and then you duplicate that and you change it to Mandy's hiking event, right? And then you take the workflows that you created, you duplicate them, and then you just change the event that's triggering them or the property that's triggering them. So once all of this is made, it really can, especially if you're interacting with hundreds or thousands of people at these events, it really can make your data cleanup a lot easier, so that it makes it easier to manage these imports and exports. Because that's the only thing that is a bit manual for HubSpot, where we're all used to being able to automate everything under the sun, is that this part in particular is a little bit manual. So with that is our demo for how to do a little marketing operation flow for this. So now what I want to do is go ahead and open this up to questions. So, and I would also love to hear, we've got one more poll, if you think you're likely to use these new features. So I would absolutely love to hear that from you. And it looks like a lot of you, 75% of you are likely to use the new import feature. So that's great. Hopefully that marketing operations workflow is helpful for you. So now, okay, great question, Jared. Can we put a cap on the number of registrants? That's a really good question. So unless it's available through, I'm going to go ahead and do this. Unless it is available through the API, I do not think that you are able to put a cap on the number of registrants inside of HubSpot. Now, if you're using an app that connects to HubSpot, you could cap it there. But okay, well, what you could do as well is, let me think about it. Like if you were registering through a form, I'm sure that we could work it out to where once we had a certain number of people, we would hide the form and change the page using some sort of smart content or something via the API. So I think you could do that. But when I think about natively inside of HubSpot, since the registration isn't actually happening inside of HubSpot, you're importing it, the limit would be in your own import. Or again, if you were running it through a form, you would have to limit it that way. Now, if we get into using some other custom objects, which is a total possibility, then we could control for that. But with this out of the box new set of features, it does not directly give you a way to do that. So if you have follow-on questions to that, let me know. There is not. Okay, one second. So is there an extra charge? So I'm going to call this one out real quick. So is there an extra charge? There is not an extra charge. So this is available on all Marketing Hub subscription levels. So no matter what Marketing Hub subscription, starter, all of it, you have marketing events. And then let's see, I'm going to go back up to a little bit higher so I can kind of answer these in the order that they came in. Okay. You do need to turn this on first. Yes. Great question there. So you do have to turn it on. So let me just really quickly, this question might have come through before I showed this, but all you have to do is go, you go to product updates by going here and then go to in beta and just search for marketing. And then you're going to see it right here. I'm already in the beta. So mine would say leave beta, but yours, you would have join beta here. Okay. So that's how you would join the beta. So I think that should answer that question. And then it'll take a minute. I just want to call out, once you turn it on, like to see it listed in your settings under objects to access the updates to the form, it'll take a couple of minutes for that to populate. So if you don't see that, just give it a couple moments. Okay, for these marketing event creations, is this an added feature? So I think what you're probably asking, let me know if this is right or not. You could have a follow-on question for sure. But this is included in all Marketing Hub subscriptions. So you can go in, you can create the event once you have opted into the beta. Everything that I've showed you today is going to be available to anybody who has the Marketing Hub, which is really exciting. Everything's not always available to everybody. Sometimes you have to upgrade. So it's very, very fun when we have things that don't have an added cost. Okay. All right, let's see this. So is there a registration fee or cost for a ticket? Does it interact with sales and deals? So I think you absolutely can. And so what you would first have to do, again, this is where, because we don't have, I'm going to go back to the workflow screen real quick. So this is where, because we don't have the marketing events in the workflows, what you would do is, let's say somebody registered and you got them into the system as registered, however that's happening, through a form, through an upload, whatever it is. Then what you could do is set up a workflow that's triggered just like this by someone being on the list that they get added to when you upload them. And then that could kick off the action to create a deal with this value and associate it to that contact. So that's how you would go about connecting it to revenue and connecting it to deals in the sales pipeline. And if you have additional questions on that, happy to answer that further or bring you on stage. So just let me know. Maria, that was a great question. And then Carla, this is an excellent question. So if you have a hybrid event, right, this can be interesting. So for hybrid events, to identify if a specific attendee was virtual or in person, would we need to create a custom property? Really great solution thinking. Number one, I absolutely love that thinking, because you would, right? Like, we can't access any properties specifically about that contact. Now, this is something, I'm going to be honest, I haven't looked into this a ton, so there might be within, let me look at something real quick, actually, because we have a list of people here that we have listed as attending this event. So let's go to the activities and let's look at only marketing events, and let's see if there's anything about this that would tell us. It just says that she attended. And so I don't think, and I have not seen in the activity timeline or anything else, something that would specifically call out that somebody had attended one way or the other. So exactly what you said, Carla, I think what you would want to do is have some sort of even single letter that would be a HubSpot property that would be on the upload. And then that could go ahead and append to their record, so you would know. So then when you're nurturing after the fact, you could filter them onto different lists based on that property, and then send that communication along to ask or to correspond with how they attended that event. But that is a really good feature ask. And so I am definitely going to ask the HubSpot team, and there might be a couple of people in the audience today, see if that is on the roadmap anywhere, because I think that would be a really great feature. Okay, let's see. Other questions. One second. I am, one moment. Oh, sorry. I just tagged you, Maria. I clicked on your name on accident. That's why I couldn't see the questions. Okay. So is this something you could create a Loom for to do? I find that Looms are helpful. Absolutely. We will have, and I would love to hear some specifics, Maria, if you're looking more at like just the step-by-step how to create an event, or the step-by-step of the marketing operations process. But we will definitely create some condensed assets. I know that this entire webinar, well, as of right now, it's 37 minutes. We'll see where we're at when it's all said and done. So we can definitely get some videos out there. And if that's something that you would be interested in, we can go ahead and get that sent out to everybody as a follow-on, because I do think that would be helpful. And it is great to be able to reference back. And okay, so step-by-step for creating events, especially using sales and deals. Absolutely. It sounds like this is a great opportunity for us to create some more content. And I love hearing from you guys what you think would be helpful and what you need, because then we can create that and help you. So Martin, I'm sure you're taking note of that, and we'll be getting to work on that after this webinar. Okay. So while we'll see if any more questions roll in here, but the last thing I want to call out again is just one more time, some of the things to remember about it, right? Okay. So number one, you can now add properties to marketing events and put them on the form you used to create, which of course now we can create marketing events manually, which we could not do before. And then we can now upload registrants, attendees, and cancellations, which we also could not do before. The information could only come over previously from a third-party application, which, important to remember, you can still use those. You can still create a Zoom webinar. You can still create an Accel Events event and sync that information over. This is just introducing yet another option for managing your events and ensuring that you're getting your complete customer lifecycle for all of your automations and everything else that you want to do inside of HubSpot. So some things to remember that we can't do, right? Like we just said in answering Carla's question, we cannot get in there and like edit like properties related to the marketing event activity, because marketing event activities fall in the activity object, which we usually don't have access to edit activities because they're things that have happened, right? Not information that we're entering into the system. And so we can't access that information. We can't edit at the contact level, whether someone has attended or not. We cannot access the, Whitney, I'll do that in just 1 second. Perfect. We cannot access marketing events within workflows, but we can access it in lists. Okay. So yeah, I will go through that one more time because I think it's great to see it a few times. So general setup, right? So again, we can go to properties. We get there either by going down to data management and going to properties, or going to objects and going to marketing events. And I will call out for any of you that are on the new navigation. I'm sorry, I decided to not turn on the new navigation before this webinar since it is new to me. So if it's not as easy to find these things, I apologize. You can send us a message and we'll try to help you find them. Okay. So you go in, you create whatever properties you need, and then you can go in and you can edit the form. So again, to edit the form, you go to objects and marketing events, and then we can customize that form. And then once we have done that, then we go over here and we simply go create marketing event. And let's see, test 2 and test 2. We'll go ahead and throw a date in here real quick. And there we go. All right. So now I'm going to create that event. And when I create that event, I can go in here. And right now there's not going to be anything associated. So I can go over here and I can go ahead and do an import to import my, register, and somebody call out, right? Like you might have a list of people and you upload it once to say they registered. And then you might upload that same list again later to say who has canceled and who has attended. And then from there, the other thing we need to remember is getting our list attached, right? So as soon as you make a list that says someone has completed, so let me go ahead and edit these filters real quick so that I can show this to you. So, so if we go to marketing events, that will be under marketing interactions. Okay. So when you're looking for how to make that list, you'll go to marketing events, and then you can say attended marketing event, canceled, or registered, right? And so or attendance duration, that's more webinar, right? So if we go for, let's say this one is registered. So registered for marketing event, and then we go here to add a filter, and then event name. And there we go, right? Now it's going to add everybody to that list. And so when we do that, that's going to go ahead and add the list right here. So I'm going to give this a refresh. Oops, I forgot to hit save. Hold on. Save changes. All right, now we'll do that. Now for the refresh. All right, there we go. So now that's here. And then if we wanted to do a campaign as well, we would go ahead and we could go add an asset. And so we could go over here and go to marketing events, and we could add marketing event 2 or test 2. Now we add that. So we'll go back over here. We'll do a refresh. Now we have an associated campaign. And once we do an import, now here's something you'll notice is once you do one import, this button goes away. So then to access the imports, you just go up here. And then if you want to access all of the properties, just like you can with any other record type, now you can also access that here. And you'll see all the custom properties as well as all of the native properties. So great question. I think that was a great idea. Okay. Oops. Sorry, that was not supposed to be a question. Okay. Not sure about most of the people on here, but our agency uses HubSpot as a fundraising database. Yeah, I would love to hear anyone else who's using this for fundraising. Maria, what are you thinking of as far as tying the event data to fundraising, like being able to segment lists to send out targeted campaigns, or if you want to talk about it, I can invite you on stage. Just be mindful that when I invite you on stage, you will have camera settings. So we just don't want anybody to join the stage and be on camera unexpectedly. So Maria, okay, awesome. Let me go ahead and invite you on stage. 1 second. Hey, nice.
Hi, Mandy. Thank you for this morning. We are new to HubSpot and digital reach, and we started it to use for CRM purposes for our marketing. But as we've grown and the agency has grown, and to really have everything in one particular area, we decided to upload our donor database, and now I've been using it as a donor database. There has been some challenges, but with this marketing piece, we obviously have, we also use Fundraise Up that is through our website. So those deals and donations come through there. Obviously that would work with our golf event. So just try to figure out how this piece could be tied into, our golf registrants. Some of them are on a foursome, so they're not the ones that are paying. So it's kind of that process, thinking about it, but it has been challenging using it as a database, just because there's so much lingo and properties that really don't relate to it. So it does get very confusing. And so we're going through those growing pains and had to clean up quite a bit. But I was just curious as to how many people on here today also use it as a fundraising tool.
Yeah, that's I would love anyone who wants to chat in the comments that you're using it for fundraising. That would be great. And I think that, Maria, you bring up an interesting use case, right? Like specifically for fundraisers, for nonprofits, because it's more dynamic than that, right? It's not just you came or you didn't. Like, are you the one that paid? Did you also participate in the silent auction? Did you also donate? Like, what were all of the interactions that you had? Like, the event is not as cut and dry as just you registered, you came, or you didn't, right? And here was the event and the date. You need to know a little bit more about it. And so I think that what we would look to do in that type of situation, and obviously this is off the cuff, but I think we would look at using some sort of custom object as well. And when people have actions related to that event, putting them onto lists, and then, creating records and associations with the custom object. So you could have like, okay, here's our event, right? And then here is this group, if that's the golf group, right? And then here are the people in that group. And this person has this deal associated to them, but it's also associated to the group. And then we roll all of that up and all of those associations to the complete event revenue that you could then break down by category. But I think that your use case is too complex. It needs more, not too complex for this. You can use it. It's just you need to use other things with it as well.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
but that's the conferences too. That would be helpful for it. But again, we're still really learning. So I'm still, wet behind the ears with all of this. And we've had, like I said, we have had some changes. I just was curious.
Yeah. No, I would love to set up a time separately to kind of chat through it, because it sounds like an interesting use case. And I would love to see specifically what your use case is and what the solution would be, because it might also help other people. Yeah. That would be great. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on stage and for joining me, because it was good to see you again. And I think it's an important question, because there is like, great, this feature is great, but what else do we need and where do we go with it next to get everything that we need out of event management? And again, I think that's really great feedback, and something that I will share with the HubSpot team as far as questions that came from this was, how do you deal with these different scenarios? And that might help inform, again, if things were available in workflows, for example, to amend this, and that would make everything I would make it a bit more flexible and with a few less workarounds. So I'll share that feedback as well.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, it's just, with us, we're a large agency and we're growing as we speak. And having something that really is specific for people who are using it as a database and a fundraising tool, I think maybe it's something that you all might want to look at, to create something just specifically for people that are using the CRM piece, but with the fundraising piece to it, because it's so many fields that they don't really apply, and it does get a little confusing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. And I think that it's a good suggestion, and we'll definitely create some more content. And that's something that we are working on right now as a team. So we'll keep producing that. And to answer the question from Luz, there is now some sort of integration with Razor's Edge. I don't think it makes sense to use both, because I think that HubSpot can do everything that Razor's Edge does. It just requires a little bit more configuring. So while it requires a little more configuring, in my opinion, I'm a little biased, I'll say that, is that you can, once everything is configured properly, you can do a lot more easily with HubSpot than you can with Razor's Edge. But there is an integration available if that is something that's needed, that's relatively new. It might be from the Razor's Edge side, I'm forgetting right now. But yeah, to kind of wrap up with your question, Maria, it's absolutely something that's on that is top of mind for us, and content we're actively creating now. And so anything that we can, I'd love to chat again, have a one-on-one chat about this, because I think you could give a lot of great ideas, and then have that in, videos as well as webinars. And so I love hearing that suggestion, and I really appreciate it.
It was, thinking about what you said, we had Blackboard, which is eTapestry, which is a Blackboard Razor's Edge piece. So we did do that, and there was a lot of customization that needed to be done. So, like I said, we're still tweaking things. So, just know that you'll need to do some customization.
Yeah, no, I think that is important to know. And we'll chat about this, separately. And Luz, I would love to, maybe we can schedule a conversation. Karen is here in the audience, so she can reach out, because I would love to hear that feedback of what all of the needs are. And then we can work on creating the, and giving that feedback. So I appreciate Maria. And that's all we have. So if you want to chat about this, if you scan the QR code on the screen right there, that'll take you to a page to be able to book time to chat. So if you want to look at how you're going to use it, or, the conversation, Maria, with you, then, we can go ahead and get that scheduled. And then at the bottom left, you'll have a link there if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. If we haven't connected before, I do share a number of HubSpot videos, so I'd love to be connected with you. And the last question for Tim, if you have not used these Chrome browser organizers, they're great. You just right click and you create a new group, and you can now save groups. So, because it used to be if you closed out all the tabs, the group went away. So yeah, it does help to make you feel like you don't exactly have 150 tabs open. Like maybe you only have 5 or 6. So there's an unexpected tip from the marketing events webinar. So really great to have you all here today. Thank you so much for coming, for joining us, for participating. It was great to hear from you how you're using marketing events. Again, we're here to help. Reach out to us on LinkedIn, book a time to chat. But good luck with using the new feature. Any feedback you have as well, share that with us and we'll pass it along to HubSpot. But otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend ahead, and happy HubSpotting in the meantime. Thank you.